Before we begin, listener, remember to gently tap like and subscribe so you won't miss the next story. Tonight, I'll take you through the quiet halls where the walls still breathe, where every sound means something, even when no one's there to make it. 5 stories, each one a whisper left behind by those who never truly left. So, turn down the lights, lie still, and listen carefully, because some sounds don't stop when you wake up. The man who knocked twice. I sleep where the road grows quiet. That night, the back roads of Mississippi folded over me like a damp blanket, the canopy dripping a slow metronome on the windscreen. My truck ticked as the engine cooled, and somewhere in the woods, an unseen creak spoke to itself, the sound thin and silver. I cracked the window for air. Wet pine, cold mud, the shy musk of moss. The highway had ended miles ago. All that remained was a single lane thread stitched through black trees. I was almost under when the first noise came. Knock. 2 heartbeats, then the second. Knock. It was light, polite even twice, then silence, as if someone had tapped a teaspoon against the rim of a porcelain cup. I held my breath and listened. Rain whispered. Leaves answered. Somewhere, a whip-poor-will counted to 3 and forgot the rest. My phone had no signal. The clock blinked 02, 14 inches, a faint green that made the cab look underwater. Knock. 2 again, from the passenger side window this time. I sat up. The glass showed only my face and a smear of forest. I thumbed the door lock out of habit and told myself it was branches, acorns, cooling metal. The air through the window turned suddenly colder, as if something had leaned close to listen back. Knock, knock. This time, it sounded like it came from behind my seat. I didn't turn around at first. The sound was too soft to be real, like a memory echoing in a wrong place. The cab smelled of damp vinyl and something older, faintly metallic, the kind of scent that lives in tools left too long in the rain. I whispered my own name just to hear a human voice. It felt small, swallowed by the dark. The rain had stopped. Outside, the trees leaned like eavesdroppers, black against the thin moonlight. My headlights had died hours ago, yet the windshield glowed faintly, an opal shimmer, as if the forest itself was exhaling light. I switched on the cabin lamp. Nothing moved, but in that yellow cone I saw droplets drying on the glass in pairs, perfectly round, 2 side by side, and on the opposite window another 2. Knock. Knock. This time, from the tailgate. I twisted the rearview mirror, but the back of the truck was nothing but night. I should have started the engine, reversed, done something. Instead, I waited. There was a rhythm to it now, measured, deliberate, like a heartbeat trying to match mine. 2 knocks, always 2, never 3, never 1. I stepped out into the night, boots sinking into wet soil. The air was heavy, but I could hear it, the echo of the knock, bouncing between the trees, like someone tapping wood against bark to keep a trail alive. When I circled to the back, the truck's door was dry, though the rest of the metal still glistened from rain. I touched it, old, but beneath my palm, the surface trembled, as if something inside had exhaled. I unlatched the trunk. It lifted with a slow sigh, empty except for my backpack, my canteen, and a single muddy handprint. Small, too small to be mine. I remember whispering into the air, "Who's there?" per se. No answer, only the far-off hiss of water returning to the ground. the sound of a forest pretending to sleep. When I climbed back into the driver's seat, the condensation on the inside of the windshield had formed words, just two short ones, drawn by a fingertip. Knock back. Have a seize. I wiped them away, but the outlines stayed, ghosted in the glass like veins beneath pale skin. And then, for the first time, I realized the knocking hadn't stopped. It had only changed places. Now, it was coming from underneath the truck. The rain began again, soft at first, like static whispered through a radio. Each drop carried the faintest echo of rhythm. 2 beats, pause, 2 more. It matched the knocking beneath the truck. I sat very still, afraid to move, afraid to break the pattern. My breath fogged the windshield in slow ghosts. The cabin seemed smaller now, the ceiling lower. Somewhere deep beneath the seat, metal flexed, like something shifting its weight, testing the frame. Then the sound changed. No longer 2 clean knocks, now it dragged. A scraping, like nails tracing the undercarriage. The steering wheel trembled under my grip, and the mirrors, though, still seemed to hum with the vibration. I turned the key. The engine stuttered to life. The headlights flickered, scattering silver across the trees. The forest looked wrong, too many shadows, all facing me. I pressed the accelerator. Gravel spat behind the tires. But the noise didn't fade. It followed not from outside, but from inside the metal, moving with me. For miles, the road wound like a ribbon through fog. The radio sputtered to life on its own, tuning itself through empty frequencies until a single channel held steady. A voice, male, calm, too calm. You heard it, didn't you? 2 knocks, then 2 more. That's the way in. Claire's end quote. The voice was flat, distant, and yet it filled the cab, bleeding from every speaker. If you knock back, you agree to the exchange. Once down. The radio clicked off by itself. I should have kept driving. But curiosity is the truest form of doom. I pulled over on a shoulder of mud and pine needles, stepped into the open. The rain had stopped again. The silence was thick enough to bruise. My flashlight cut a cone through the mist white, trembling light. Under the truck, the earth was damp and undisturbed. No footprints, no holes. But then that sound again. Not knocking now, breathing. From inside the metal, slow and shallow, matching mine. I dropped to my knees. My reflection in the puddle looked like a stranger, mouth half open, listening. The breathing stopped, and then, directly beside my ear, inside the truck bed, came 2 soft taps. Knock, knock. I flinched back, hitting my head on the bumper. The sound came again, louder, faster, now beating through every panel, like someone trapped in a coffin of steel. I jumped into the cab, slammed the door, and turned the engine. Headlights cut across the trees. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw movement, a figure at the edge of the light, still and soaked, watching me. His outline wavered, too pale for flesh, too dense for fog. The tapping turned to pounding. The truck shook. And then, for a single second, the windshield fogged from outside, and I saw the faintest outline of a face pressed against the glass, expressionless, eyes wide as mirrors, mouth mouthing the words. Knock, back, nos. The pounding ceased. Only the rain remained, soft again, like applause from an unseen audience. When I finally found my voice, it came out as a whisper. Who are you? Well, The reply was not from the radio. It came from the glove compartment. 2 knocks. I froze. The glove compartment pulsed with sound, hollow, measured, deliberate. 2 knocks, then silence. 2 more. The pattern had followed me inside, into the skin of the truck itself. My hand hovered over the latch. The key in the ignition trembled. I could almost feel breath seeping from the seams of the dashboard, warm, faint, human. For a moment, I thought, if I open it, I'll know. And an uglier thought followed. If I don't, it'll open itself. The rain had stopped again. It always stopped right before the knocks. The forest outside looked made of paper, motionless, too still for wind. I pulled the latch. The door dropped open. No sound, no movement, just a flashlight battery, a map, and the smell of rust. I exhaled a shaky laugh, the kind people make when they've run out of courage. I reached for the map. That's when the glove box knocked from the inside again. The map shifted on its own. Something pressed against it, shaping the paper outward, like a fingertip tracing from behind. I could see it, the outline of a hand, small, pale, with a second hand overlapping it, tapping twice. I slammed it shut, locked it. But the noise moved instantly to the window beside me, 2 gentle taps. I turned. A face leaned against the glass. Not quite a man, not quite shadow. He looked as though the forest had tried to remember how humans were shaped, edges blurred, eyes hollow, mouth too still. Water streamed down the outside of the window, but none of it touched him. He was perfectly dry. Then he smiled. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't kind. It was tired. He lifted one hand, 2 fingers curled. Knock, knock. I backed away until my shoulders hit the driver's door. What do you want? I whispered. He tilted his head, as though he'd misheard. The next words didn't come from his mouth. They came from the radio, clicking alive without light or signal. A voice, layered on static, said, "A traveler pays the toll. 2 knocks. That's the promise. I didn't promise anything," I said. But even as I spoke, my reflection in the window moved a half-second after me, lagging, slow, detached, and then it lifted its hand, too, knocking back against the inside of the glass. 2 soft beats, perfect rhythm. The man outside smiled wider. The reflection stopped matching me altogether. He began to fade, melting into the mist, until the forest reclaimed him. Only his voice lingered, not from the radio now, but from beneath the truck again, deep and wet and muffled. "Your turn to knock. Wanderer, knock, and you'll find the road again." Toe cracked. The truck lights flickered. I turned the ignition. Nothing. I hit it again. Nothing. Each failed attempt echoed like a heartbeat through the cab, and somewhere behind me, the glove compartment rattled again, opening an inch on its own. A wind rose through the forest, carrying whispers that weren't words, only the sound of knuckles on glass. The truck began to shake, not from outside, but from within, panels creaking like something crawling behind them. I did what fear demanded. I lifted my hand and knocked twice on the dashboard. A moment of pure stillness followed silence so absolute it hurt. Then the engine roared to life. The headlights flared, revealing the road ahead, except it wasn't the same one. The trees were gone. The rain, gone. Only endless asphalt, stretching beneath a red horizon that didn't belong to dawn or dusk. I gripped the wheel. My pulse matched the rhythm. 2 beats, pause, 2 beats. And as I drove, the voice whispered again, almost fondly, "Good. Now keep the promise." How we cried. The mirror showed only darkness where my reflection should have been. The engine's hum steadied into something almost gentle. After the chaos of the woods, the smooth rhythm felt merciful, hypnotic. The red horizon had softened into a muted dawn, and the endless highway shimmered like molten glass beneath it. My mind began to unspool. Exhaustion painted the edges of everything in dreamlight. I told myself it was over. Whatever I'd stumbled into back there, the knocking, the reflection, the voice, it was the sleep-deprived theater of a man too long alone. I'd been chasing silence for weeks, and maybe silence had finally chased back. The heater clicked on by itself. Warm air filled the cab. The radio hissed, faint, static, but harmless this time. The voice was gone. I let it play, a comfort blanket of noise. Somewhere between mile markers that didn't exist, my eyelids began to drift. Then a familiar sound rose, not knocking, not anymore, a soft thud, rhythmic, matching the spin of the tires. I leaned forward. "Flat," I muttered, pulling onto the shoulder. When I stepped out, the air was clear, desert still. The tire was fine. The road stretched in both directions. No end, no sign of life. I walked a few steps away from the truck and realized the noise hadn't stopped. It was still coming from inside. The passenger seat belt clicked once, twice, as if fastening itself. The seat creaked, dipping under invisible weight. Someone was sitting there, but the seat was empty. The smell, though it wasn't, damp earth, old rain, the same scent that had filled the woods. I climbed back in, careful, eyes on the road. The radio changed stations again, whispering over itself until a melody emerged, a soft hum, familiar. My mother used to hum that when she drove me to school. I whispered, "How do you know that?" "Well." The radio didn't answer, but the voice returned, gentler this time, woven through static. You knocked back. The road remembers kindness and self. For the first time, it didn't sound menacing. It sounded grateful. The seatbelt beside me tightened slightly, the way a friend might lean closer on a long ride. My pulse steadied. The world outside no longer looked wrong, the horizon finally golden, the air sweet and warm. I even smiled, absurdly, and whispered, "All right, whoever you are, stay as long as you're quiet." One. The radio hummed approval, and the sound of rain began again, light, far away, like a lullaby behind glass. The smell of pine returned. I drove for what felt like hours through the newborn morning. The fear began to fade, and in its place came an odd tenderness, as though the road itself had forgiven me. When the next town appeared on the horizon, a lonely cluster of roofs and one flickering neon sign, I laughed in relief. A diner, the kind that served burnt coffee and warmth. Civilization. As I parked, the radio cut to silence. The seatbelt unclicked softly on its own. "Thanks for the company," I said without thinking. A reflex. The air in the cab felt lighter, cleaner. I stepped out, stretching, the sun finally touching my face. The diner door chimed as I entered. The waitress looked up and froze mid-greeting. "Morning," I said, smiling awkwardly. She didn't answer. Her eyes were wide, staring behind me. I turned. Through the diner's front window, my truck sat gleaming in the sunlight, and there, in the passenger seat, was a man in an old coat, head bowed, hands resting still on his knees. His skin was gray, his face mine. When I blinked, the figure was gone. But in the air between us, faint and deliberate, came the sound again from the diner window, behind my reflection. Knock. Knock. The sound froze the room. 2 small knocks clear, measured, intimate. It came from inside the glass between me and my reflection. The waitress stepped back, tray trembling in her hands. "Sir," she whispered, "your window." Her voice cracked before she could finish. Every pane in the diner vibrated with that same rhythm. 2 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks again. Coffee cups quivered on their saucers. I turned toward the window. My reflection didn't follow. It stayed staring forward, expression blank, lips slightly parted. Then, slowly, it lifted its hand. 2 fingers tapped the inside of the glass, and thin lines of frost bloomed beneath the touch. The waitress screamed. Plates shattered. I backed away until my shoulder hit the door. The other customers, 2 truckers and an old man with trembling hands, just watched, motionless. No one moved to help. Then the voice returned, crawling through the static hum of the diner's old jukebox. "You drove the road. You kept the rhythm. Now you owe the end. The way." The jukebox lights flickered red, matching the glow I'd seen on that impossible highway. I bolted for the door. Outside, daylight had curdled into a bruised dusk. My truck idled with its engine already running, even though I'd taken the keys. The passenger door was open. I hesitated only long enough to hear the waitress whisper, "Don't get in," ate it all. But the world behind me was melting, the diner's neon warping into dripping shapes, the ground softening like hot tar. I ran for the truck, slammed the door, and locked it. The radio clicked on instantly. No music, only breath, familiar, mine. "Keep driving," it said, before the light fades. Where? The highway stretched ahead again, no town, no sign, only that endless ribbon and the growing hum of the engine. I pressed the pedal. The truck surged forward, tires screaming, mirrors trembling. But the knocking didn't stop. Now it came from everywhere: dashboard, doors, even the air vents. 1,000 invisible fists, all keeping the same cursed tempo. 2 beats. Pause. 2 more. I shouted over the noise, "What do you want from me? We're here." The radio crackled. "You already gave it." You knocked back. Round up slack day. The horizon tore open. What I'd thought was storm clouds was the road itself splitting apart, hurling upward like paper burning. Beyond it was nothing, only static light, as if the air itself had become a screen with no signal. My reflection flickered in the rear view mirror again. Only this time, it smiled wide and unkind. "Pull over," it mouthed. I didn't. I drove harder. The truck rattled, bones of metal straining. The speedometer climbed 60, 80, 100 until the needle quivered against its limit. The knocking turned frantic, the rhythm breaking down into chaos. Then, just as everything began to blur, a shape appeared ahead, a dark silhouette standing in the center of the road. The same man. Dry, still, waiting. I hit the brakes. Tires screamed. The world tilted. The truck spun sideways, gravel shredding beneath the wheels. I swerved, barely missing him, and as I passed, he reached out, fingertips brushing the window. The engine died. Silence fell like a stone. The only sound was my pulse, still 2 beats. Pause. 2 beats. I was too afraid to breathe. Outside, the figure walked slowly toward the truck. Every step matched the rhythm that had haunted me for nights. He stopped at the window, the same tired smile on his face. "It ends when someone takes your seat," he whispered. I reached for the handle, meaning to lock it, but my hand didn't move. My reflection did. It turned toward him, nodded, and smiled. The door opened itself. The man climbed in beside me. His coat dripped nothing, his eyes twin voids of calm. He looked at me the way you look at someone who's finally understood a rule too late. "You wanted the road," he said softly. "Now keep it going." "No." He placed his hand on the steering wheel. My hand followed without me commanding it. The truck's engine roared back to life. The radio spoke once more, now in my own voice. "You heard it, didn't you? 2 knocks, then 2 more. That's the way in. En tiet south." The horizon brightened, not dawn, but something colder, sterile, endless. The man dissolved into it, and I felt the wheel vibrate under my palms. When I looked down, my hands were fading too, becoming translucent, as if the cab were turning to smoke. I screamed, but no sound came. The truck rolled forward on its own, headlights stretching into infinity. The last thing I saw was the faint reflection of a new face, the waitress from the diner standing at the roadside, thumb raised, asking for a ride. The radio whispered, 2 knocks, always 2. The road never stops. It just trades drivers. Have self. And then the light swallowed everything. When the light broke, it wasn't morning. It was the color of a dying screen silver, empty, endless. My hands gripped the wheel, but they were no longer mine. Pale, unfamiliar veins traced through translucent skin. The hum of the engine filled the cab like a heartbeat that didn't belong to me. The horizon ahead wasn't road anymore. It was a loop, the same mile repeating. The same cracked billboard, the same slumped tree, the same stretch of wire fence. Every time I passed it, the radio let out a small sigh. "Keep the rhythm," it whispered. "They're listening," every faithful child. I looked to the passenger seat. It was occupied. The hitchhiker, the girl in white, sat there, still and calm, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Her eyes were open, but glassy, like windows looking into fog. The seatbelt was fastened. She turned her head just slightly toward me. "It's your turn to knock," she said, though her lips never moved. My breath hitched. I forced a whisper. "No, I'm done. Remender." But the truck disagreed. The glove compartment rattled once, twice. The sound spread again through the door panels, the floor, even my own chest. 2 beats. Pause. 2 beats. My heart began to match it, whether I wanted to or not. The girl smiled. "Good," she said softly. "Now someone else will hear you. Rather." She raised her hand and pressed 2 fingers gently to the window. Outside, a flash of headlights appeared, another car on the dark horizon, drifting closer. Its beams sliced through the mist, catching my windshield. And in that light, I saw the driver of the approaching car. He looked exhausted, lost, curious. He was me. The girl's voice became a whisper in both my ears. "When he stops, knock twice. To matter." The radio dial spun of its own accord, tuning through static until it landed on a single clear frequency, the sound of soft tapping. Knock. Knock. And then the screen of light folded over everything. The engine fell silent. Only 2 words lingered, spoken in my own fading voice. Your turn. And 2. Story 2, The Radio Motel. The first rule of the road is never stop when the air feels too still. I broke that rule somewhere in Texas. The sun had bled itself dry, leaving only the pale hum of insects and a horizon carved flat as bone. My gas gauge blinked empty 20 miles back, but the road wouldn't end it, just looped through red dust and mirages until the motel appeared. No sign, no name, just a flickering neon number. 9. Remender. A single-story stretch of yellow rooms, every door shut but one. Room 9's curtain stirred, though the air was dead calm. The parking lot looked abandoned except for a payphone, receiver swinging slowly, tapping the post. Knock, knock. 2 dull hits of plastic against steel, soft, rhythmic, familiar. I stepped out of the truck, gravel crunching under my boots. The world smelled like rust and motel soap, and the buzzing of the neon light timed perfectly with my pulse. The payphone stopped moving. Its speaker hissed, a low whisper threading through static. Then a voice faint, distorted, impossible, spoke my name. You should have stayed on the road. Wanderer. Where'sida? The curtain of room 9 lifted, and I saw a shape sitting inside, perfectly still, listening to the radio. My radio. I stood frozen in that dim parking lot, my boots sinking slightly into the red dust. The voice from the payphone kept whispering my name, stretched out, distorted by static, like someone trying to breathe through a mouthful of sand. I told myself it was a bad connection, a prank, a trick of nerves, but no one knew my name out here. No one should have. The neon number 9 buzzed above the door, sputtering as if fighting to stay alive. I approached slowly, the air thick with the smell of old ozone and motel bleach. Every step closer made the voice clearer, softer, almost coaxing. You've been driving too long. Come inside, just for the night. Why? Inside, behind that lace curtain, the figure didn't move. The radio glowed faint amber, tuning itself through empty channels. Click, hiss, click, hiss until it found something. A man's voice, calm, distant. Authorities are still searching for the missing traveler seen heading west from Mississippi last night. His truck was found abandoned by the roadside earlier this morning. Officials believe he may have succumbed to heat or exhaustion. The words cut through me like a shard of cold glass. Mississippi, truck, missing traveler. It couldn't be coincidence. I was standing right here, listening to my own obituary. I reached for the door handle of room 9, but it opened before I touched it. The air that came out smelled of metal and rain that hadn't fallen yet. The figure sat on the bed, back turned toward me, radio murmuring by his side. The same old melody from my last night on the road drifted through the static 2 soft piano notes, repeating like a heartbeat. They always find you, the voice said, not from the radio, not from him, but from somewhere between. He turned his head slightly. I couldn't see his face, only the hollow outline of it, shimmering faintly, as though half made of light and dust. His mouth didn't move, yet I heard him clearly. You drove too far into the frequency. You tuned yourself in. Where? Then the payphone outside began to ring again. Once, twice, a pause. Then again. Knock, knock. I stepped back, heart pounding, unsure whether to answer the phone or the silence itself. The man on the bed leaned closer to the radio. The voice on it began repeating, flat, mechanical now. Missing traveler, found this evening inside a motel room off Highway 9. The broadcast stopped mid-sentence. Every light in the motel went out, and in the sudden dark, the only thing that spoke was the radio softly, intimately, like a breath against my ear. Checkout time is almost here. That's Peria. Darkness spread through the motel like a living thing, slow, deliberate, patient. The air no longer smelled of bleach. It smelled like burnt dust and static. I reached for my phone, but the screen only showed shifting lines of white noise, faintly pulsing in time with my heart. From somewhere deep in the walls came a low hum. Not electric, organic. The radio flicked back on by itself. Its orange dial glowed faintly, breathing like an ember. A single station played now nothing but the crackle of rain. Except it wasn't raining. I took a step toward the bed. The figure was gone, just gone. The sheets were perfectly smooth, untouched, the impression of a body never made. But the sound of breathing remained steady, faint, coming from inside the radio speaker. "You shouldn't have come in," it whispered. Voice split across the frequencies. "They don't like the signal disturbed." Exted 80. The power surged. The neon outside flickered violently, each flash revealing glimpses of things that shouldn't move. Shadows bending in the wrong direction. Motel doors trembling in unison. Shapes forming behind the curtains. Every door had the number 9. 9, 9, 9. Each one glowing for a fraction of a second, like synchronized heartbeats. The humming in the walls turned to tapping, not rhythmic, this time urgent, like fists striking drywall from behind. The plaster bulged outward in places, forming the faint outlines of hands pressing through. My pulse jumped, matching their rhythm without permission. Knock, 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 knock. 4 beats. A new pattern, the sound of something impatient. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the nightstand. The phone on it began to ring, the same shrill, pulsing tone as the payphone outside. I didn't answer. It didn't matter. The ringing spread through every room, a chorus of calls from behind locked doors. Each ring layered upon the next, until it wasn't ringing anymore. It was screaming. I clamped my hands over my ears. "Stop," I shouted, but the radios in every room answered together, voices overlapping like a distorted choir. "You're already checked in. You can't leave until you hear your name again. A." The walls began to breathe. I could see the wallpaper moving, expanding, contracting. The air felt charged, static crawling across my skin. I backed toward the doorway, ready to bolt, but outside, the parking lot wasn't there anymore. It had become an ocean of black glass, reflecting the motel infinitely, a mirror of rooms that all contained me. Each version of me stood at a window, staring back, and every one of them was holding a radio. "Find the right frequency," they whispered in unison. "Only one lets you out. Henry." I slammed the door and turned every dial on the radio until the static thinned to silence. Then a new sound, barely audible, rose from beneath the noise. 2 faint knocks, followed by a woman's voice singing through the distortion. "Niine rooms, 9 souls, 1 road back." It was soft, childish, and wrong. I turned the knob toward the door again, but this time it wouldn't open. The handle pulsed with warmth, alive under my touch, and through the radio, beneath the hum, came the familiar, calm male voice from before. "You're listening to Highway Broadcast 9. Up next, local news. The body of a missing traveler was discovered just before dawn in a motel outside Abilene. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The man was found seated beside a radio, smiling. Prizes. The broadcast stopped. The air conditioner clicked on again, humming a single word through the vents. Stay. What is font? And I realized the humming in the walls wasn't from machines. It was voices. They were all whispering my name. The whispers thickened until they became weight. I could feel them, like invisible fingers brushing against my skin, testing if I was real. My breath came shallow, shallow enough to mistake for someone else's. Then the voice in the radio laughed low, hollow, human but wrong. He's listening now. We can begin. Now. I snatched the radio from the nightstand and hurled it against the wall. It didn't break. It didn't even dent the plaster. Instead, the moment it hit, every other radio in every other room came alive. 100 identical dials glowing orange through the motel's paper-thin walls. The sound of tuning click, hiss, click, hiss, all spinning toward the same frequency. Then, all at once, silence. The stillness pressed into my eardrums until I thought they'd burst. I could hear my heartbeat echo through the room, loud as thunder. And then, through the static-soaked air, came my own voice, broadcast from every radio at once. This is me, reporting from room 9. I think I'm still alive. Ratings. The sound bounced off the walls, overlapping, growing louder with every repetition until it filled the ceiling, the floor, the air in my lungs. This is me. I think I'm still alive. And this is me. I think I'm still alive. She will stand. I covered my ears, but it came from inside my skull now. When I opened my eyes again, the walls had changed. The wallpaper was peeling away, not from age, from underneath. Beneath the cheap floral print was something moving, writhing, shapes of mouths pressed against the plaster, whispering the words I refused to say. I staggered back, knocking over the bedside lamp. The light bulb shattered, but its glow didn't die. It drifted upward like mist, collecting near the ceiling until it formed a silhouette. A man, the same man from the Mississippi Road, the one who'd knocked twice. He stood inside the light, his face a hollow blur. When he spoke, it came from the radio, the walls, and my own mouth all at once. You kept driving when the dead told you to stop. You turned the dial too far. Now, you belong to the frequency. Resoned. My voice came out, trembling. I didn't ask to belong to anything. As all to have. He tilted his head, amused, like he was hearing a child lie. Every road asks for a toll, traveler. You paid yours when you listened. Once down, the air flickered. The radio glowed white-hot. I backed toward the door again, but it sealed shut with a wet sound, as if the wood had turned to flesh. Behind it, I heard movement, soft feet dragging across carpet. I whispered, "Who else is here?" Trust. And the voices answered as one, everyone who tuned in, to standers. The radios began to hum again, louder, more frantic. The bulbs in the ceiling pulsed in rhythm with the sound, and I realized they weren't lights at all. They were eyes, a dozen of them, watching, blinking in unison with the hiss of static. The man stepped forward. His body seemed made of radio signal, warping and flickering. Where his heart should have been, there was a dial spinning, fast, jittering between stations. Each voice that leaked out was mine, spoken at different ages, in different tones. He held out a hand. Tune yourself, and you can go free. Wildest fans. The dial in his chest stopped on one final channel. I heard silence, then a faint knocking. Knock. Knock. My body moved before my thoughts did. I reached out, fingertips brushing his. A jolt surged through me, pure white and soundless. The radios screamed, the bulbs burst, and in that brief, impossible flash, I saw every room of the motel at once, hundreds of me, sitting, waiting, each with their own radio, each mouthing the same final words. I think I'm still alive. Workington Sylph. The light died. When my vision cleared, the man was gone. Only the radio remained, quietly whispering through a cracked speaker. Room 9 is now vacant. Well, and then, from the hallway, I heard footsteps approaching slow, steady, dragging. The door began to open from the outside. The door creaked open, slow, reluctant, as though the air itself resisted what waited behind it. I took one step back. The hinges groaned, then froze halfway. Nothing moved. No shadows, no voices, only that thick, trembling silence that comes after thunder. Then a sliver of normality slipped in. A strip of warm light from the hallway, a faint smell of cleaning powder, the low buzz of a fluorescent bulb. Housekeeping, a woman's voice called gently. Human, clear. I almost laughed from the relief. I opened the door wider. She stood there, mid-40s maybe, uniform faded, hair tied back. Her name tag read Marlene, the kind of face you forget immediately because it belongs so perfectly to every roadside motel across America. She smiled faintly. Sorry, sir, didn't mean to wake you. We thought this room was empty. To have and said her. The sound of her voice broke something inside me. It anchored me. The radios were silent. The smell of ozone had faded. Even the wallpaper looked normal again. I must have dozed off, I said, voice shaking. How long have I been here? Present today. She frowned. Check-in was last night. You're good till noon. Chenning. Her tone was calm, unbothered. Everything about her screamed ordinary. The word vacant echoed in my head, and I shoved it away. Mind if I grab a coffee before I hit the road? And Rakir. Of course, she said. Lobby's just down the hall. And I grabbed my bag and followed her. The hall was narrow, carpet dull red, with worn patches where countless boots had passed. The faint sound of an ice machine hummed at the far end, mundane, mechanical, beautifully real. We passed a mirror. For a second, I didn't want to look, but habit won. My reflection stared back, pale, tired, unshaven me. No delay, no tricks. Relief swelled like a tide. It was over. Whatever had happened in the dark was a hallucination, a dream stitched from fear and exhaustion. The lobby looked alive with morning light. Dust floated like gold in the air. A small TV murmured the morning news. Marlene handed me a foam cup of burnt coffee. The taste was heaven. Authorities continue to investigate the disappearance of a traveler whose vehicle was found abandoned outside Abilene earlier this week. I froze mid-sip. The anchor slipped. The TV screen fuzzed for half a second, static, swallowing the image before the newscaster's face returned. The man on the screen smiled, polite, professional. Then his smile widened, just a little too far, and he looked straight at me. He's awake now, the anchor said softly, though the sound didn't come from the speakers. It came from inside my cup, vibrating the coffee's surface in perfect ripples. The room fell silent. Marlene stood behind the counter, still smiling that faint smile, the kind people wear in dreams. The TV flickered again. 9 screens appeared within the screen, each showing the same hallway, the same door, room 9. In each one, a version of me sat on a bed, holding a radio. I stumbled backward, spilling coffee across the counter. "No," I whispered. "This isn't real." I left the room. Marlene's smile didn't change. Her eyes flicked to the window. I followed her gaze. Outside, the parking lot glowed in morning sun. My truck sat exactly where I'd left it, dew glittering on the hood. For one impossible heartbeat, I believed it. Then I saw the reflection in the glass. The truck wasn't empty. Someone sat in the driver's seat, head bowed, hand resting on the radio dial. He looked just like me. Marlene finally spoke, her voice distant now, as if echoing from underwater. "Coffee's complimentary, sugar, but the stay always costs something." And quote, her name tag slipped from her shirt, clattering to the floor. It didn't read Marlene anymore. It read 9. Behind me, all the radios in the hallway came alive at once, a tidal hiss of static and whispered laughter. From the TV, my own voice announced quietly, "Next check-in begins in 5 minutes. Way." And as the lobby light flickered, the smell of ozone returned. The laughter bled into the walls, climbing higher, warping the air until it hummed with low electricity. Every bulb in the lobby blinked at once, bathing everything in pulses of orange and black. Marlene didn't move. She just kept smiling, though now her jaw seemed a little too tight, a little too stiff, like something was holding it there. "Stop it," I hissed, backing away. "You're not real. This note." She blinked, and when she spoke, her voice wasn't her own anymore. It came in layers, one tone sweet and southern, another deep and masculine, buried beneath like static. "You checked in under no name. That means the room keeps you. As while abidity." The floor under my boots began to vibrate. I looked down, the carpet pattern rippled, shifting into the image of radio waves, rising and falling like sound made visible. The TV behind me flickered through channels. 9 faces, 9 rooms, 9 versions of me, each one staring, each one mouthing the same words in silence. "Get out, get out, get out." The front door stood only a few steps away, glass rattling under invisible wind. I ran for it. The handle burned cold beneath my palm. It didn't open, it breathed, fogging slightly, and a voice whispered from the frost on the glass, "You can't leave through silence." And south, behind me, every radio in every hallway turned on at once. They screamed. The sound hit like a shockwave, flooding the room with noise so dense it became physical. The windows trembled. The fluorescent tubes burst overhead, raining white dust. In the strobing flashes of light, Marlene began to change. Her hair lifted as if underwater. Her skin flickered, revealing bursts of light beneath moving shapes, like shadows trapped inside her. When she spoke again, every mouth on every TV screen moved with her. "We need the story to continue. Wanderer, someone must always listen." And the air turned metallic. I fell to my knees, clutching my head. The frequencies weren't random anymore. They were words, syllables I almost understood. My own name repeated backward. My last memory of the road, my heartbeat, broadcast across eternity. I crawled toward the door again, eyes watering from the light. Then, through the static, I heard a softer sound. Knock, knock. I froze. The same pattern, familiar, intimate, dreadful. It came from the radio on the counter, the old one, cracked, with dust in the dials. It glowed faintly blue, and beneath the static, a voice I recognized whispered, "You escaped once before. Do it again." Chand, the man from Mississippi, the one who'd knocked twice. I didn't question how he could be speaking, not anymore. I grabbed the radio with both hands, twisting the dial as it burned under my palms. Each station I passed screamed, cried, begged fragments of other travelers, other trapped voices, until one channel broke through, total silence. I turned it higher. Silence grew until it became deafening. Then the frequency snapped, like glass cracking under pressure. Everything stopped. Marlene froze mid-motion, her smile collapsing into dust. The televisions went black. The walls peeled away like wet paper, revealing an infinite dark void beyond. The motel wasn't built of wood or concrete. It was built of sound. The floor vanished. I fell. When I landed, I was standing outside. The morning was bright and colorless, like a washed-out photograph. The motel behind me was gone, nothing but a field of static air where it had stood. My truck waited by the roadside, engine idling. I climbed in. The radio was off. The dashboard didn't hum. For the first time since Mississippi, there was true silence. I drove until my hands stopped shaking. Mile markers appeared again, real ones this time. 73, 74, 75. The world looked ordinary. Trees, sky, dust. At a gas station, I stopped for water. The clerk looked up as I entered, smiling politely. "Long night?" he asked. I almost laughed. "You have no idea. Also," he nodded toward the pump outside. "Truck sounds rough. You might want to check the back. Something's loose under there." As a dactyl 9, a shiver crawled up my spine. I forced a smile. "Thanks. I'll look." To waste away. Outside, the heat shimmered off the metal. I crouched and peered beneath the chassis. Nothing. Just dust and shadows. I exhaled relief, thin and fragile. Then, from inside the cab, the radio clicked. Once, twice. A voice, calm and familiar, slipped through the static. "You found the silence. But silence is just another frequency." Wellstain. The sound of the engine deepened, slow and pulsing like a heartbeat. The steering wheel turned on its own, ever so slightly, toward the horizon. I reached for the key, ready to pull it out, but it was already gone. The truck rolled forward. The radio hummed low. "Next stop," the voice said softly. "Room 10, K's." The road stretched out again, endless, bright, and waiting. And somewhere, faintly, beneath the hum of the tires, I swore I heard it again. Knock, knock. The road gleamed like liquid glass beneath the sun, miles of silence stretching ahead. For the first time in days, I could see my reflection in the windshield, tired, hollow-eyed, but still me. I told myself that meant something. That meant I was free. But then I noticed the horizon wasn't fixed. It pulsed faintly, like the rhythm of breathing. And every few seconds, the edges of the world flickered, as though the air itself were struggling to stay in tune. The radio stayed silent. The truck hummed steadily, until it didn't. A burst of static cracked through the speakers. Then, a voice, female this time, calm, almost affectionate, whispered, "Welcome back to the night road, traveler. We missed your story." X. The highway lines began to warp, curving subtly toward the distance, until they formed a spiral, endless, swallowing the sky. My hands tightened on the wheel. The engine roared louder than it should have. The dashboard lights blinked to life, one by one, spelling something I couldn't ignore. Room 10 awaits. The air conditioner clicked on, blowing cold against my neck. And through that artificial breeze, a faint melody emerged, a woman humming the same tune that had played in the radio motel. It came from nowhere and everywhere, a lullaby buried inside static. In the rear-view mirror, the reflection of the back seat shifted. Someone was sitting there now. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. But I could see her in the glass pale, palm, wearing an old motel uniform with a name tag that read Marlene. Her lips moved soundlessly until the words began to echo through the truck's speakers, layered, glitching, sweet and cruel at once. Check-in confirmed. When is fine? The odometer blinked to 0. The road ahead folded, oiling like film through a projector. My hands froze on the wheel as the truck slowed by itself. Outside, through the rising heat, a neon sign flickered into view. One word: motel. And beneath it, the number 10 glowing faintly red. The radio clicked twice. Knock. Knock. And then the voice, mine, but older, quieter, whispered through the static. "Don't stop this time. Wait." Story 3. The Hitchhiker in White. The sky over Nevada was a bleached sheet of heat, humming with the sound of invisible cicadas. I'd been driving for days since the radio motel, trying to outrun the static that had followed me across every state line. It was quieter now, only a faint hum beneath the engine, like a memory I couldn't turn off. The road stretched ahead, endless and white, cutting through a desert that looked like the skeleton of the world. No trees, no towns, just mirages trembling in the distance. My truck's shadow was the only thing moving out here, long and thin, a black ribbon stitched to the earth. When I saw her, I thought the heat had finally gotten to me. A girl stood at the edge of the asphalt, dressed all in white. Her hair was long, colorless in the sun, her skin so pale it almost shimmered. She wasn't waving, just standing there, hands clasped in front of her, head tilted slightly, like she'd been waiting a long, long time. The air grew colder as I slowed down. The hum beneath the truck deepened, pulsing once, twice, a rhythm I'd heard before. Knock. Knock. I should have kept driving, but I stopped. She didn't move at first, just stood there in the glare, a ghostly figure against the desert horizon. The wind that had been howling moments ago died as if holding its breath. The world seemed to wait for me to decide. I rolled the window down halfway. "You need a ride?" I asked, my voice oddly muffled, like speaking underwater. She lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were so light I couldn't tell their color. For a moment, she just looked at me, then nodded once, small and deliberate. I unlocked the door. The hinges sighed as it opened, a soft metallic groan that sounded almost grateful. She slid into the passenger seat without a word. Her movements were careful, precise, as though she'd done this 100 times before. The air inside the cab changed, cooler, stiller, heavy with a faint smell of rain that shouldn't exist in the desert. "Where are you headed?" I asked. She didn't answer. Her gaze stayed on the road ahead, hands folded neatly in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was fragile, distant, like something transmitted through a broken line. Anywhere but back. That's me. I tried to laugh, to cut through the unease. Aren't we all? Nos two. The radio silent since Texas crackled to life. A faint hum, then static, then a soft whisper. Passenger detected. Resume route. Relation. I turned the knob off. It didn't stop. The hum sank lower, vibrating the dashboard. The steering wheel trembled in my hands. I glanced at her. She hadn't moved, but her reflection in the windshield looked wrong. Her head tilted slightly the other way, her mouth forming words her body didn't speak. Are you hearing that? I asked. She blinked slowly. You picked me up before. Cames. My stomach turned. No, I've never. She turned to me then, finally, and the sunlight caught her face in a strange way, too flat, too still, like the light didn't know how to touch her. You always say that, she whispered. The hum beneath the truck deepened again, a pulse running through the frame. In the distance, I saw something faint shapes along the highway shoulder, silhouettes, dozens of them, all facing the road, each figure dressed in white. I blinked, and they were gone. The hum faded back to silence. The girl leaned her head against the window, whispering to herself. I couldn't make out the words, but the last thing I caught before the wind swallowed them was a sentence that made my hands shake on the wheel. He never gets past this part, as so rhymed. The radio clicked twice. Knock. Knock. The desert stretched around us like a wound, miles of pale dust that swallowed every trace of sound. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The hum under the dashboard came and went in slow waves, a heartbeat hiding beneath the engine's steady rhythm. Every now and then, the girl in white would hum quietly, almost tunelessly, just under her breath. The sound didn't belong in the truck. It was too soft, too cold, like the echo of a lullaby remembered by someone else. I tried to focus on the road. The horizon refused to stay still. It shimmered, folded, and bent as if the world were breathing in slow agony. The air smelled faintly of salt, though there was no sea for 1,000 miles. Mind telling me your name? I asked, keeping my tone light. She didn't look at me. Her lips barely moved. You already forgot it, Tractor. Something in the way she said it made my chest tighten. My pulse quickened, falling into that old rhythm again. 2 beats. Pause. 2 beats. I tightened my grip on the wheel. A gust of wind hit the truck. The sound it made wasn't right. It wasn't wind at all. It was knocking. Knock. Knock. From outside. From the roof. I jerked the wheel, nearly swerving off the asphalt. The girl didn't flinch. Her reflection in the window smiled faintly, though her real mouth didn't move. You hear that? I demanded. She turned her head toward me, slow, deliberate. It's just the others, she said softly. They always knock when someone new joins the ride. Well, my breath caught. Others. We. Her eyes met mine, pale, endless, empty. You've picked us up before. You keep driving, and we keep trying to get home. Just. I slammed the brakes. The truck skidded to a stop, throwing up a storm of red dust. My heart hammered in my chest. The radio, dead for hours, sparked with sudden life, a sharp hiss, followed by a familiar voice. Report of an unidentified vehicle seen westbound on Route 50. Driver matching description of missing traveler from last week. I killed the engine. The voice kept talking. The dials spun on their own, tuning through bursts of static until a single phrase came clear. "Do not stop for passengers in white." What had happened? My throat went dry. I turned toward her seat. Empty. The seatbelt still fastened, the faint indent of her shape pressed into the leather. The air smelled of rain again. Outside, the desert had changed. The road behind me was gone, replaced by a line of figures stretching into the distance, each one standing still, all dressed in white. The wind didn't move them. The light didn't touch them. Then came the sound again. Knock. 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 4 this time, from inside the truck. I turned slowly toward the back seat. Something moved in the shadows, a pale hand resting gently on the leather. Then another, then a third, tapping in rhythm with the engine's idle hum. The radio whispered, almost lovingly, "She's not gone. None of them ever are." After, my reflection in the mirror wasn't mine anymore. It was her smiling faintly, eyes closed, humming that same low, distant tune. I pressed the gas, hard. The wheels spun, gravel screamed, and the truck surged forward through the heat. But the road didn't move. The horizon didn't change. And from the seat beside me came a whisper, barely audible over the roar of the engine. "You're driving in circles again." And let her descend how. The radio clicked twice. Knock. Knock. The desert had swallowed the world whole. No towns, no mile markers, not even sky anymore, just a bleached horizon that breathed heat and memory. The air shimmered around the truck like liquid glass. The girl in white hadn't spoken again since her whisper. She just sat there, motionless, staring out through the windshield. Her reflection in the glass still moved out of sync, a heartbeat too slow, a breath behind. The engine began to cough. A deep metallic groan rolled through the hood like a dying breath. I eased off the gas. Then the radio turned itself back on. Not with a voice this time, with breathing. A steady, rhythmic inhale and exhale 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, exactly the same as mine. I hit the knob to shut it off. Nothing happened. The volume turned up instead. In the corner of my eye, I saw her hand move. Slowly, she reached forward and adjusted the dial. The static shifted pitch, the breathing morphed into faint whispers, fragments of language dissolving before they became words. "You brought her again. He never learns. The road remembers." My pulse pounded in my ears. "What the hell are you doing?" I asked, my voice cracking through the tension. She didn't answer. Her other hand lifted, pressing gently to the window. Her fingertips left no marks, no prints, only a cold bloom of condensation in the exact shape of her palm. "They can't find me if you don't stop," she murmured. "Find you? Who? Was?" Her lips trembled into something like a smile, soft, empty, distant. "You'll see them soon. Where yous?" The air inside the truck dropped 10 degrees. Frost edged the window, spider webbing outward from her hand. The radio hissed again, louder now, until a man's voice broke through the noise, harsh and urgent. "Driver, pull over. Do not engage with her. Do not let her speak. One frame." My hands clenched on the wheel. "Who is this? Will find of hand." The voice stuttered, fragmented by static. She's not, she doesn't." Then a long screech drowned it out, sharp enough to make me flinch. The speakers vibrated violently. The girl's reflection in the glass turned toward me. though her actual face didn't move. Her voice came from both versions at once. They always try to warn you. Way. She turned her head, then slow, deliberate. Her eyes had no pupils now, only two pale lights, reflecting the road's endless white. The truck began to shake. The wheel jerked out of my grip. I slammed the brakes. The tires screamed against the asphalt, but the vehicle didn't stop. It kept gliding forward, smooth and silent, as if the road were pulling us. Outside, the horizon split. From the heat shimmer, figures emerged one after another, all dressed in white, lining both sides of the road. Each face turned toward us as we passed, expressionless. Each one lifted a hand in perfect unison. And together, they began to knock. Not on the truck, on the air itself. Knock, 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 knock. The sound vibrated through my bones. I shouted, "Stop. What do you want from me? What is Ari?" The girl turned to me, calm amid the chaos. Her voice was soft but clear, the kind of sound that cuts through storms. "You stopped for me once before. You promised you'd take me home. And speak in... I don't even know who you are. Way..." She blinked slowly, a single tear tracking down her cheek. Except it wasn't water, it was white as milk, glowing faintly before fading into the air. No one ever remembers. That's the curse. Trains. The figures outside began to move closer, their forms rippling like reflections on water. The knocking grew louder. The windshield vibrated under invisible hands. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel. "Then tell me what to do." Writing and effusion. Her voice barely carried above the roar of the wind. "Don't look back. As..." And then she vanished. Her seat was empty. The radio fell silent. For the first time, I felt movement. The truck was slowing, gliding toward something in the distance, a small white sign, its letters flickering in the desert haze. "Last exit home." I pressed the brakes again, hard. The road responded with a single, hollow sound. Knock. Knock. And beneath it, her voice whispered one last time, so faint I almost missed it. "If you stop here, you'll never leave again." Well, the sign grew larger as I rolled closer. "Last exit home," the white letters barely clinging to a rusted sheet of metal. The sun behind it looked wrong, too still, too pale, hanging motionless over the desert like it had forgotten how to set. The truck slowed on its own. My hands were trembling, but for the first time, the air inside felt normal, warm, dry. The hum beneath the chassis was gone. The mirrors showed only empty highway, and the passenger seat still empty. I killed the engine. Silence, true silence, poured into the cab. The relief hit me so hard I almost laughed. It felt like exhaling after years underwater. She was gone. The knocking was gone. The world was still. I stepped out, boots crunching against the brittle sand. The horizon shimmered, and a thin wind stirred, carrying the smell of sage and gasoline. For the first time since Mississippi, the air didn't feel haunted. It felt clean. A single building sat at the end of the exit ramp. A diner, chrome, sunlight, the faint promise of coffee and air conditioning. Normal, beautifully, painfully normal. A neon sign flickered above the door. Open 24 hours. I pushed through the glass door, the bell above it chiming softly. Inside, the world smelled of burnt toast and cheap coffee. A radio played quietly in the corner, some old country tune about leaving town and never looking back. I almost smiled at the irony. A waitress stood behind the counter, back turned, refilling a sugar jar. "Morning," I said, voice hoarse. "You open? Well." She turned, and the sound of the spoon against the glass stopped. She was young, early 20s, hair dark as the night sky, and though her face was unfamiliar, there was something in the way she looked at me that made my stomach twist. "Rough road?" she asked softly. I nodded. "You could say that. Amen." Her eyes flicked toward the window, where my truck sat baking under the sun. "You drove in alone. And, yeah, why? And 70. She smiled faintly. "Most people who stop here don't. Consecutive had." Something about her tone made the air shift. I looked around the diner. Every booth was empty, yet the coffee pots were half full, steam still rising. A jukebox in the corner flickered with soft blue light, the same tune looping endlessly. "Strange place," I said. "It's not strange," she murmured. "It's just between places. Man." She turned the radio up a little. The station fuzzed, then cleared the same familiar static hum beneath the music. I felt my pulse quicken. "Can you turn that off?" Was enter. She tilted her head. "You don't like music. Pravaktas vermated." Before I could answer, the melody distorted, breaking into that sickening rhythm again. 2 faint knocks buried inside the tune. Knock, knock. I froze. The spoon in her hand clinked once against the counter, in perfect time with the sound. "Where am I?" I whispered. She smiled, not cruelly, not kindly, but knowingly. "Still on the road, wanderer. You just pulled over to rest. Well." The radio hissed once more. Then a familiar voice leaked through, calm and low. "He's driving in circles again." "What?" I backed away from the counter. The bell above the door jingled softly, though no one had entered. The girl stepped closer, her voice barely audible now. "You shouldn't have stopped for me. I told you that before." Tens. My heart stuttered. "No, you're not her. She's gone. And done." Her smile didn't fade. "You always say that. And a taken salve." I turned toward the window. My truck sat exactly as I'd left it. Except now, there was a shape inside a woman in white, sitting calmly in the passenger seat. Her head turned toward the diner, and she smiled. The radio clicked twice. Knock. Knock. Every light in the diner went out. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It listened. Darkness swallowed the diner whole. The last echo of the bell above the door faded into nothing, leaving me in a black so thick it felt like fabric pressing against my skin. Somewhere behind the counter, glass cracked. Then a slow, rhythmic sound rose from the floorboards. 2 knocks. Pause. 2 knocks again. I stumbled backward, hands searching for the door handle. The air was freezing now, colder than any desert night had a right to be. My breath came out in visible clouds, trembling in front of my face like ghosts trying to escape. "Hey!" I shouted into the dark. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the radio. It came alive with a hiss, then silence, then a voice I hadn't heard in what felt like lifetimes. "You can't keep outrunning us. Wanderer, clews to and right." It was her, the girl in white. The sound filled every corner of the diner, vibrating through the counter, through the floor, through my bones. "You promised me a ride home. You promised all of us. Not at Thames." Every window flashed white, just for an instant, revealing faces pressed against the glass. Dozens of them, all the same, all her. Their mouths opened and closed in unison, their voices overlapping until they became a single distorted word. Drive. Without it all, the lights snapped back on. But the diner wasn't the diner anymore. It was the desert again, endless, flat, blinding. My truck sat in front of me, engine idling, the door open like a waiting mouth. I didn't think, I ran. The moment I hit the driver's seat, the door slammed shut by itself. The key turned. The radio tuned to static. The hum started up beneath my feet, low, deep, alive. The girl sat beside me again, smiling softly. "You shouldn't have stopped," she said. I gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. "What do you want from me?" With melancholy self. She didn't answer. She just lifted her hand, pointing at the horizon, a horizon that pulsed like a heartbeat, glowing, faintly blue. "Home," she whispered. "You said you'd take me home." "Welly." The road ahead twisted. The asphalt shimmered like water, forming a spiral, pulling us forward. The truck moved on its own, faster and faster, engine roaring, speedometer climbing past limits that didn't exist. The radio crackled again. A man's voice, calm, broken by static, joined hers. "Don't listen to her. She's not real. None of them are." With sighing, "Who are you?" I shouted. "You were one of us," the voice replied. "You took the wrong turn. The road remembered you. As ride are ridin'." The girl's face hardened. Her reflection in the glass turned toward the sound of the voice, her mouth twisting into something too wide to be human. "He doesn't get to talk," she hissed. "He left us behind." And stacked. The truck jerked violently. The windshield cracked, spreading veins of white across the glass. I hit the brakes, but the pedal sank uselessly beneath my foot. The voice on the radio screamed through the static. "Get out. She's taking you with her." And then the radio exploded in a burst of white noise. The truck spun out. The desert blurred into streaks of light and shadow. For a heartbeat, I saw faces in the wind, hundreds of pale outlines, whispering, reaching. The girl beside me was no longer a girl. She was light and shadow stitched together, her eyes black wells of absence. "You said you'd take me home," she repeated. Her hand reached toward me, fingers brushing my arm. Where she touched, the skin burned cold. "I don't know where home is," I screamed. She leaned closer. Her voice softened. "Neither do we. Has he won before he's in back?" The truck slammed into something unseen. Metal shrieked. The world folded inward. I was thrown forward, glass slicing air around me. For a moment, I floated, suspended in a blinding sea of static. Then everything went still. When I woke, there was no desert, just darkness and fog. The truck was gone. The girl was gone. A single road stretched ahead, narrow, wet, glistening under an unseen light. A sign beside me read, "Welcome home, Wands." From far behind, an engine started. I turned. Out of the fog, headlights approached slow, steady, deliberate. A familiar silhouette sat in the driver's seat. Me. The window rolled down. My own face leaned out, smiling faintly. "You need a ride. We no ad expected and sail." I backed away, but the other me just watched, waiting. The passenger door creaked open, inviting. Behind me, voices whispered, dozens, maybe hundreds, all the same, all soft, all pleading. "Get in." the road's lonely without you. Its sighted eyes. The headlights flared brighter, blinding. The hum returned, and from somewhere within the fog, a sound I'd known all along echoed like a heartbeat made of metal. Knock. Knock. I opened my mouth to scream, but the other me spoke first, calm and final. It's your turn to drive, to weigh. The fog swallowed everything. Light, shape, even sound all gone except for the faint hum of the engine waiting somewhere ahead. I could still see the twin headlights, steady as eyes, staring through the mist. The other me sat motionless in the driver's seat, hands resting on the wheel like a man carved from glass. His mouth moved once. No sound came. Then he smiled, that same tired smile I'd seen in the mirror of the Mississippi truck, in the diner's window, in every reflection since this cursed journey began. The passenger door opened. Inside, the cab glowed faintly, the dashboard pulsing with that familiar rhythm. 2 beats. Pause. 2 beats. Knock. Knock. Behind me, the whispering voices grew softer. The girl in white, the radio man, Marlene, the hundreds of ghosts I'd carried, they all spoke together, one voice woven through the fog. Every traveler takes the wheel eventually. Why? The headlights flickered once. The hum deepened, turning into a heartbeat too loud to be mine. The fog rippled outward like breath on a mirror. And then I saw them rows of cars stretching into the distance, headlights fading into infinity. Every driver inside looked the same. Every face was mine. Each vehicle idled, waiting its turn. I stepped backward, shaking my head. No, not me. I'm done. Was. But the ground beneath me pulsed alive, resonating with the sound of the engine. The other me leaned across the seat, voice finally audible, soft as dust. The road doesn't end. It just changes who drives. Wait. The engine of the nearest car revved. A wind rose, carrying the faint echo of the radio's static lullaby. The same one that had followed me from room to room, state to state. Somewhere, deep in the mist, another car door opened. A figure stepped out, a young woman in white, waving for a ride. Her lips moved. You promised. 2 and Solver. The headlights blinked twice. A mechanical heartbeat. Knock. Knock. The engine growled low. The fog turned red. And as I reached out, unable to stop myself, the other me whispered, "Welcome back to the highway. Wanderer. Have intentions?" The door shut. The engine roared, and the road began again. Story 4, the gas station without a sign. By the time I reached Arizona, the world had gone colorless. The sky was white. The sand was white. Even the road looked bleached of life. A scar drawn straight across an empty map. My truck was running on fumes, the needle quivering against empty. But the next town hadn't shone for hours. Then I saw the lights. At first, I thought they were stars, small, flickering, low on the horizon. But they didn't stay still. They blinked in a strange rhythm. 3 short flashes, 2 long, a pulse, not a beacon. A gas station appeared at the next bend, lonely and impossible. No name, no sign, just a single pump swaying gently in the heat, its hose dragging across the cracked concrete like a snake shedding its skin. The building behind it was small tin roof, flickering neon, and a window that seemed to breathe when I looked at it too long. The smell of gasoline hit me before I stopped the truck, thick and sharp, like blood that never dried. The radio, silent for miles, whispered once through the static. "You're low, but not on fuel. 2 Zek." I should have kept driving, but the tank light blinked red, and I pulled in anyway. The engine coughed once before dying completely. A shudder passed through the truck, and the silence that followed was too deep, the kind that presses against your chest, until you start listening for something that isn't there. The air smelled like rain and rot, though the desert sky hadn't seen clouds in days. I stepped out, boots crunching against gravel. The pump stood waiting, its paint flaked down to rust. The numbers on the meter spun on their own, not fast, not random, a steady rhythm. 2 clicks, pause, 2 clicks. I swallowed hard. "Hello." The door of the small building creaked open. A bell rang, soft and slow, echoing longer than it should have. Inside, a single fluorescent light flickered above a counter stacked with dust-coated bottles. There was no register, no sound of refrigeration hums, no scent of oil or rubber, only the faint, metallic sweetness of old blood. A man stepped out from behind the counter, or something shaped like one. He was tall, too thin, skin the color of dust, eyes the same gray as the sky outside. He wore a uniform that might have been blue decades ago. No name tag, no company logo. "You lost?" he asked, his voice calm, distant. "Just need gas," I said. My words echoed strangely, as though bouncing off something hollow behind him. He nodded once, slow. "That's what they all say. Radins." I glanced toward the pump. "You take card or cash?" "Buyer." He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Neither. To stain." The pump hissed. I turned. The nozzle had already lifted itself, fuel dribbling from its mouth like drool. I hadn't touched it. "Hey," I shouted, stepping back. "It's leaking." "Press this." The man didn't move. "It's not leaking," he said softly. "It's remembering. Remender also." "What?" "Endy Self. The last one who stopped here, by Tenster." The smell hit me again strong, chemical, metallic. It wasn't gasoline. It was old, wet iron, blood. He walked toward the window, gazing out at the road. "You've been driving a long time. Sometimes the road takes things from you. Here, we give them back." 9s. My skin prickled. "Look, I just need fuel. Then I'm gone." 1. He turned, eyes gleaming with something that wasn't light. "That's what they all say." 2. 9 to sell. Outside, the meter stopped spinning. The pump clicked twice. Knock. Knock. I glanced at the truck. The headlights flashed on by themselves, cutting through the dusk. For a moment, I thought I saw someone sitting in the passenger seat, a woman in white, her head bowed. I blinked. The seat was empty. When I turned back, the man behind the counter was gone. But his voice drifted from somewhere in the dark corner of the shop. "You can fill the tank now, if you're willing to pay the right price." "Will I did sign?" And the pump began to whisper my name. The whisper was faint at first, my name, breathed through static. It rose from the nozzle like air escaping a wound. The pump kept ticking, slow and patient, though I hadn't touched it. Click, click, pause, click, click. I stepped backward until my shoulders hit the truck. The headlights dimmed, flared again, then settled into a dull glow that didn't quite reach the edges of the lot. The desert around me had gone completely silent. No wind, no insects, just the slow pulse of the pump and that soft voice repeating my name in time with every click. "Stop it," I whispered. "Stop." The handle dropped from its cradle, hitting the ground with a metallic clank. The hose twitched once, as if something inside it still breathed. Then it began to slither toward me across the cracked concrete. I stumbled aside, kicking it away. The nozzle struck the toe of my boot and went still. A thin line of dark liquid leaked from the tip. It wasn't fuel. The smell was sweet and coppery, and under the station's lone light, the color looked wrong, thicker than gasoline, darker than oil. The door to the building creaked open again. The attendant stood in the doorway, his face lost in shadow. "Don't waste it," he said softly. "We don't get many visitors." 9. I took a step toward the truck. "Whatever this is, I'm not part of it. Tarry us." He tilted his head. The movement was jerky, like a puppet tugged on the wrong string. "You already were. Traveler, you left something here once. Do you remember?" And castring. The wind returned sudden and sharp, carrying a sound with it. The clatter of hundreds of objects striking glass. I turned toward the station's window. The inside of the glass was lined with bottles clear, cloudy. Some cracked, and in each one, something moved. They rattled in the wind, their contents flickering like trapped sparks. A faint murmur rose, voices layered over each other, each one saying a different thing, each one broken by static. I stepped closer to the window. The bottles weren't filled with liquid. They were filled with sound. Inside one, I could hear my own voice whispering from somewhere deep, distorted and small. "Keep driving, don't stop." My throat closed. What the hell are these gesti? The attendant stood behind the counter again, though I hadn't seen him move. His eyes glowed faintly, like pilot lights. They're what people trade for gas. Memories, promises, sounds that belonged to them once. "It's Tsar." He picked up a bottle small, stoppered with black wax. He held it to his ear, smiling faintly as if listening to music only he could hear. "This one's yours. When nest exterai." I shook my head. "No, I never." He set the bottle down. The glass trembled. A faint knocking came from within it. "Knock. Knock. Please," I said, backing away. "I just need to leave. Has propagaze." "You will," he murmured, "but you can't leave empty." "Can." He gestured toward the pump. The nozzle was upright again, resting neatly in the truck's tank. The gauge on the meter now read full, though the hose hadn't moved. "Payment received," the radio on the counter said in a metallic whisper. My chest tightened. "Payment. For what?" "Rester." The attendant smiled, thin as a cut. "Your voice. Ist." I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My throat locked. Panic surged as I clawed at my neck. The sound was gone, completely gone. Not a gasp, not a whisper, not even the scrape of breath. The attendant leaned forward, pressing a finger to his lips. "Shh. You'll scare the road." "What?" Behind him, every bottle began to shake violently, the voices inside screaming to be heard. The glass cracked, splintered, and burst. The sound that erupted wasn't noise, it was a storm, a tidal wave of stolen words and sobs and pleas. I ran. The ground pulsed under my boots, the earth itself beating in time with the knocks. I reached the truck, slammed the door, turned the key, and the engine answered with a sound that wasn't mechanical at all. It breathed. The headlights flared. In their reflection, I saw the attendant standing in front of the building, smiling, holding a single bottle glowing faintly red. Inside it, my voice whispered weakly, over and over, "Please, let me go." Reflected. The bottle pulsed twice. Knock, knock, and the truck lunged forward on its own. The truck surged out of the station lot, tires screaming, headlights slicing through an ocean of white dust. The wheel trembled under my hands, vibrating with a low, guttural hum, not from the engine, but from something alive inside the metal. My throat burned. I tried to shout, but no sound came, not even a breath. The world had stolen my voice. Behind me, the gas station receded into the distance, a single flickering light in the dark, the attendant's figure still visible, small and still, holding that glowing bottle as if it were the only lantern in existence. The radio burst into life, whispering through static. My own voice, or what was left of it, spilled from the speakers, thin and broken. Keep the road alive. Hafsiali. I slammed the knob off. It didn't stop. The sound followed, crawling through the vents, beneath the floorboards, whispering up through the seams of the truck like breath through a coffin. And then I heard another sound. From the passenger seat. Knock, knock. 2 soft taps on the window beside me. I turned my head slowly. The glass reflected only my own pale face, wide-eyed, terrified, and behind me, just for a heartbeat, a shadow, a silhouette sitting exactly where the girl in white had sat once before. But when I looked back, the seat was empty. The knocking came again. Not from outside, from inside the glass. Panic clawed up my chest. I hit the gas harder, the engine roaring in protest. The road blurred into a smear of colorless speed. My pulse matched the rhythm 2 beats. Pause, 2 beats. The radio hissed again. The attendant's voice replaced mine. Calm, distant, ancient. Don't fight the trade. The road keeps balance. You gave it your sound. It gives you something in return. As glee. My hands trembled. Something in return. The air thickened. The smell of gasoline turned sweet, cloying, like sugar burning. I glanced at the dashboard. The fuel gauge flickered between full and empty, dancing faster and faster until the needle snapped clean off. Then the truck made a noise that wasn't mechanical, a long, slow inhale. The seatbelt across my chest tightened. The steering wheel pulled against me. The hum deepened, vibrating up through the pedals into my bones. In the side mirror, the reflection of the road had changed. There was no desert now, only black water stretching into infinity, reflecting the ghostly glow of my headlights. And from the water's surface, shapes began to rise, dozens of them. Each held something in their hands. Glass bottles. They swayed as they walked across the water, their mouths open in silent screams. Inside each bottle, a faint light pulsed in rhythm, 2 beats. Pause, 2 beats. I pressed the accelerator harder. The truck didn't move faster. The shapes moved closer. The radio squealed with distortion. The attendant's voice broke through again, louder this time, like thunder wrapped in words. You can't run from a debt that hums your name. What a distest. I tried to scream, but only a whisper escaped the whisper that came from the radio instead of me. My voice, stolen, mocking me back. The figures reached the road, their bottles clinking softly together. One by one, they lifted them to their lips and drank. The air filled with a sound like rain falling backward. The girl in white appeared in the middle of the road, pale, barefoot, dress glowing under the headlights. She lifted her hand and pointed directly at me. "You left your voice behind," she said softly, though her lips didn't move. "Now something else will speak for you." "Yes." The truck jerked to a halt. My seatbelt snapped free, flinging me forward into the steering wheel. Pain bloomed white-hot. I tasted blood. Outside, the girl stepped closer until she stood at the hood. She pressed her palm against the metal. The truck exhaled. And through the radio, my voice clear, strong, but no longer mine, said calmly, "Fill her tank. Dressed." The pump at the station clicked somewhere far behind, echoing across the desert. Knock. Knock. The headlights flickered, and the girl smiled. "Now you understand," she whispered. "Every mile costs a sound. Revermin." The world tilted. My vision swam in static. I saw the bottle glowing in her hand, my bottle pulsing with a heartbeat that matched my own. And before the dark took me, I heard the last words she spoke, floating like a lullaby through the roar of wind. "You'll speak again, but only for the road." As a metaphor, when I opened my eyes again, the world was drenched in gold. The sun was rising over the desert, slicing through the mist like a blade. My head rested against the steering wheel, cheek pressed to cracked leather. For a moment, I didn't know where I was or who I was. The hum was gone. The knocking gone. Even the radio was silent, dead and blank. I breathed. The air tasted of dust and sunlight, not gasoline or rain. I could hear birds faint, distant, somewhere beyond the dunes. I had survived the night. My throat hurt, raw, but when I whispered, a sound came out. A real voice. Mine. "Hello," I croaked, almost laughing from the shock of hearing it. The truck sat motionless, engine cold. I stepped outside and felt the desert morning cling to my skin. There was no sign of the gas station behind me, only road, stretching in both directions like an unfinished thought. For the first time in forever, the silence felt like peace. I opened the truck's back door, searching for my water jug. It was half full, condensation still clinging to the plastic. Ordinary, real, a small mercy. When I turned back, something shimmered on the ground near the front tire. A glass bottle. Old, dusty, empty. Its cap was cracked, and inside, faint etchings lined the glass fingerprints. Maybe. Or sound made visible. I hesitated, then picked it up. It was cold, too cold for the morning air. I turned it in my hand, watching the light move through it. For a moment, I thought I saw smoke swirling inside, then nothing. A laugh escaped me, quiet and breathless. "Not this time," I whispered, tossing the bottle into the sand. It rolled a few feet, caught a beam of sunlight, and vanished like heat haze. When I got back into the truck, the key was already in the ignition. I didn't remember leaving it there, but the engine started easily, smooth and obedient, as though eager to move again. The radio flickered once, then displayed the time, 7:09 a.m., before going still. I started driving. The road ahead was bright, flat, endless. The steering wheel no longer vibrated. The hum beneath the floorboards was gone. I dared to think it might really be over, that whatever debt I'd paid had been accepted. After about 10 miles, I saw another vehicle, a dusty red pickup, pulled over by the shoulder. Its driver stood beside it, waving. A normal human being, salvation in the shape of someone else. I slowed, lowering my window. You okay? When wrecked friends. He smiled, tired, sunburned, ran dry. Haven't seen a station in hours. You know where the nearest one is. Well, I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, the radio crackled softly behind me. A whisper faint, but unmistakable, my own voice. Just past the bend. No sign. You can't miss it. Person self. The words left me before I could stop them. The man nodded gratefully. Thanks, friend. Guess I'll walk. And may tell. I watched him start down the road, heading toward the bend in the distance. The sun caught his shoulders, turning his figure pale against the horizon. My throat tightened. I hadn't meant to say it. The sentence had just come. I tried to speak again to call him back, but my mouth moved and nothing came out. Not a breath, not a sound. The radio hissed once. Then, through static, the attendant's voice returned quiet, satisfied. Told you, every mile costs a sound. We chauffeur. The air thickened. The mirror trembled. And there, in the reflection of the rear window, the bottle I'd thrown away sat neatly in the cup holder filled now, faintly glowing red. Inside it, something pulsed in time, with the rhythm I could no longer feel in my chest. Knock. Knock. The truck rolled forward on its own. The desert swallowed the red pickup from view. The sun climbed higher, but the light didn't warm me anymore. The bottle glowed brighter as the truck picked up speed, pulsing red with every heartbeat I no longer felt. I gripped the wheel, knuckles white, jaw locked against the tremor in my hands. The road stretched ahead, a silver vein cutting through the desert, but I could feel it changing beneath the tires, as if I were driving not on asphalt, but on something alive. The radio whispered again. You're almost home. To Maine. I wanted to scream, but my voice was still gone, stolen, buried in the bottle at my side. All I could do was breathe shallow, useless, terrified. The steering wheel twitched, guiding itself left, right. Subtle corrections made by an invisible hand. Ahead, the air shimmered. The horizon rippled like heat waves, but this wasn't heat. This was sound, bending light the way a scream bends glass. And through it, a structure began to appear. Another gas station, identical to the one I'd left behind. No sign, no name, no reason to exist. The pump swayed gently, its hose dragging across the sand like a serpent. A figure stood beneath the awning. It was the attendant. He lifted a hand in greeting. Even from a mile away, I saw that he was smiling. I slammed my foot on the brake. The pedal sank to the floor, useless. The truck didn't slow. It accelerated. The engine roared, coughing out a sound that wasn't mechanical, a howl, long and human and wrong. The road doesn't let you turn around, the attendant's voice said through the speakers. It just brings you back. Way. The bottle on the seat rattled violently, light spilling from its seams. A high ringing filled my ears, the pitch of glass on the edge of shattering. My reflection in the windshield, warped mouth open in a silent scream, eyes wide, glowing faintly red. I reached for the bottle, grabbed it, and hurled it out the window. It hit the ground, rolled twice, and shattered. For a split second, everything went still. The light drained from the sky. The hum vanished. Then the world screamed. The truck fishtailed. The windows blew inward, glass slicing across my arms. A shockwave of sound burst from the broken bottle. 1,000 voices erupting at once. Every word I had ever spoken and forgotten. The wheels spun under my hands, dragging me off the road. The truck skidded sideways, slammed into the sand, and tipped metal folding, glass exploding. The seatbelt cut into my chest, and then everything went black. When I came to, I was lying in the sand beside the wreck. The truck was upside down, wheels still spinning lazily. Smoke curled from the hood in long, soft ribbons. For a long time, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I listened. Nothing. No hum, no knocking, no voice. When I finally pushed myself up, the world was silent beautifully, painfully silent. The horizon glowed faintly with sunrise. The gas station was gone. I stumbled toward the wreck, searching for my bag, for water, for anything familiar. That's when I saw it, the pump hose, lying in the sand beside the flipped truck. Its nozzle pointed straight at me. I blinked. It hadn't been there before. The sound started again, faint, deep underground. Click, click, pause, click, click. Then the ground trembled, and the sand near the hose split open. Something pushed its way up, not metal, not human. A hand, thin, gray, slick with fuel. Then another. I stumbled back, heart hammering against the silence. The hands gripped the pump, pulling up ahead the attendant, face dripping black. His eyes were hollow sockets, filled with glowing static. "You broke the trade," he whispered. "You spilled what was promised. Drains." He stepped out of the earth, tall, impossibly tall, his shape flickering between flesh and light. I shook my head. "No," my voice cracked, weak but real. I had it back. The attendant's mouth twitched. "You stole your voice from the road, Chan." He raised a finger. The horizon began to knock. 1,000 invisible fists beating against the edge of the sky. Knock. Knock. Each sound closer than the last, vibrating through the sand, the air, my chest. I turned and ran. The desert blurred around me, dunes twisting into walls of sound, shapes of people emerging from the noise. I could see them all now, the ones who had stopped before me. Pale travelers, mouths open in endless screams, their words turned to static. The road reappeared ahead. A single line of asphalt, black and waiting. I ran until my legs gave out, collapsed to my knees. My throat ached, but I forced the sound out, a single, ragged word. "Please." And a Zand. The knocking stopped. The attendant stood at the road's edge, his outline fading like smoke. "You paid in full," he said. "Drive, before it changes its mind." "Night." He vanished. The road shimmered once, then stilled. My truck, the same one, impossibly whole, waited a few feet ahead, engine idling. I climbed in. My hands shook as I turned the wheel. The radio was dead. The dial cracked. The bottle was gone. The silence felt sacred. I pressed the accelerator, and the desert began to move again. The horizon stayed still this time. For the first time since Mississippi, I believed I might finally be free. But somewhere, faintly, beneath the hum of the tires, something inside the engine whispered slow, patient, inevitable. Next stop, room 11. Aswatiri. The radio clicked twice. Knock. Knock. The sky over the highway had begun to bleed into twilight again, a slow, bruised red fading into gray. The air was too still, the world too clean. The truck purred beneath me, smooth, as if nothing had ever happened. No crash, no fire, no bottle, no screams, but the odometer kept flashing 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, resetting itself every few seconds like it was forgetting distance or rewriting it. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The desert was gone. Behind me stretched a long corridor of asphalt, lined not by dunes but by streetlights, dozens, hundreds, flickering at random intervals. The more I looked, the more the lights bent, forming a curve that swallowed the horizon. A spiral. The radio remained dead. The silence in the cab was perfect, almost holy. I thought maybe that was the end, the quiet after the storm. Until the speakers breathed. A slow exhale. Then my voice clear, calm. Too calm spoke through the static. Thank you for driving. Wanderer, the road remembers your kindness. And I slammed the power knob, but the dial didn't move. My voice kept talking. Please keep your eyes on the road. The passengers get nervous when you stop. When we stand, a chill crawled down my neck. I looked to the passenger seat. Empty. And then the seatbelt clicked. Once, twice. I turned my head slowly. The outline of someone shimmered faintly in the air beside me, barely visible, like a reflection caught between mirrors. A woman's voice whispered through the vents, soft and tired. You promised me a ride home. Pleasant para. My hands froze on the wheel. No, I whispered. Not again. Tries it. The headlights flickered, and the road ahead changed, no longer flat, no longer real. It wound upward, spiraling into a tunnel of light shaped like a heartbeat. The engine roared. The steering wheel turned by itself. Through the rising static, my own voice returned, overlapping, endless. Every road ends the same. Every road comes back home. Traxtfari. The seat beside me was no longer empty. She sat there, the girl in white, smiling faintly as the horizon opened like an eye. Drive, she said. The engine obeyed. Knock. Knock. Story 5. The highway that ends itself. There are places on the map that pretend to be roads, and there are roads that pretend to lead somewhere. California's Route 191 was supposed to end near the coast, a stretch of asphalt unraveling into ocean fog. But after weeks of driving, I knew better. The signs had stopped appearing. The GPS spun endlessly. Every exit I passed circled back to the same stretch of cracked concrete and dying grass. That night, the air was heavy with the scent of burnt sage and sea salt. The sky glowed the color of bone. My headlights reached only a few feet before dissolving into mist, thick as milk. The highway markers looked wrong, the same number, 191, repeating every mile like a heartbeat trying to remember itself. The lines on the asphalt curved where they shouldn't, faintly shimmering, as if painted over old, forgotten paths. I'd been driving for hours without seeing another soul, until the rear-view mirror flickered. A pair of lights followed me, pale, distant, staying perfectly still no matter how fast I went. They didn't blink. They didn't fade. They just watched. The compass on the dash spun in slow circles. And for the first time in weeks, I realized maybe the road wasn't taking me anywhere. Maybe it was keeping me. At first, I thought exhaustion was playing tricks on me. Long hours alone can turn headlights into eyes, fog into breath, and silence into company. But those lights behind me never moved, not closer, not farther, just hovering, pale and patient, as if they knew the rhythm of my fear. I tapped the brakes. Nothing changed. The glow remained fixed, motionless, like a reflection that refused to obey. When I turned off the engine, the stillness inside the cab grew unbearable. The dashboard lights dimmed one by one until only the faint glow of the fuel gauge remained, a weak pulse in the dark. Outside, the mist thickened, swallowing the world. Even the outline of the truck vanished a few feet away. I could hear the faint crack of gravel under my boots as I stepped out, the sound disappearing almost immediately into the haze. I called out once, twice, but the air absorbed my voice, leaving only the echo of breath in my ears. The road ahead curved slightly to the left, disappearing into a wall of gray. A mile marker stood crooked beside it, 191. The paint looked fresh, too fresh. I ran my hand along its surface. The numbers were warm. Behind me, the headlights shifted. Not forward, not back. They simply blinked out. The darkness that followed felt wrong, too solid. Then, something scraped along the asphalt, a dry drag, deliberate, steady. A human shape formed in the mist, low to the ground, moving as if crawling across the lane. My throat tightened. It wasn't approaching me. It was tracing the yellow divider with its fingertips, like a blind man following a wall. "Hey," I shouted, stepping forward. It froze, then stood up, tall and thin, head tilted at an impossible angle. I took another step. The fog seemed to pulse around it, thinning just enough to reveal a torn jacket, fabric stiff with something dark. Its face was hidden by shadow, but the posture was familiar, shoulders bent, weary, like every traveler who'd ever stopped for too long. "Do you need help?" I asked. The figure raised a hand, and for an instant, the mist cleared. I saw its palm blackened, cracked, a ring of burnt skin circling the wrist like a brand. In the center, faint and glowing, was a single number, 191. Then it spoke, voice low, dry, echoing as if through the hollow of the earth. "You've been here before. To fire." The fog folded around it again. The road was empty. Only the mile marker remained, new cracks spreading through its surface, forming the faint outline of a handprint. I stumbled back toward the truck. The engine turned over before I touched the key. The radio light flickered once, revealing a single word on the cracked display: loop. I pressed the accelerator. The highway stretched ahead, and there, waiting on the next turn, another marker stood, 191. The road bent and stretched in impossible ways. Every mile looked like the one before, the same worn guardrails, the same hollow signs, the same stubborn mile marker etched with 191. I drove faster, tires groaning against the cracked asphalt, trying to outrun repetition itself. The mist rolled with me, thick and silvery, folding across the headlights like a breathing veil. The longer I stared at it, the more it seemed to pulse, slow, patient, steady, the rhythm of a living thing. The compass on the dashboard spun lazily, north and south, dissolving into nonsense. I switched the radio on out of reflex, desperate for noise, for proof that something human still existed. The speaker hissed, then caught a frequency, faint whispers, like voices talking beneath water. "Still driving. Can't turn back. The road eats itself." I turned the dial. The voices changed pitch but never vanished, as though every station spoke in the same dead tongue. Finally, the sound cut, replaced by a soft hiss that seemed to fill the cab, pressing against the windows like rising steam. Outside, the mist parted for a heartbeat, The figure was back. He stood on the shoulder this time, closer now, his burnt hand lifted in greeting. The glow of 191 still burned in his palm. He didn't wave. He pointed forward. The truck slowed without my foot on the brake. The steering wheel turned on its own, following his gesture. "No," I whispered, grabbing the wheel. "Not again." "One." The tires protested, skidding slightly, but the truck obeyed him more than me. The figure tilted his head as if listening to something far away. Then he turned and walked into the fog, his outline dissolving step by step until only the echo of movement remained, not footsteps. Exactly, but the suggestion of them. I forced the accelerator down. The fog ahead rippled like heat, swallowing the last trace of his light. Then the radio spoke again, my voice this time, but slower, distorted, as if played backward. "You'll reach the end when the road remembers your name. Myrex." I killed the radio. The voice didn't stop. It echoed through the glass, through the seat, through the bones of the truck. Somewhere above the mist, something began to flicker, not lightning, not stars, shapes, signs, rows of mile markers hanging in the sky like constellations, each painted with the same number, 191. I gritted my teeth, pushing harder on the gas. The truck surged forward, but the scenery began to stutter the same turn, the same guardrail, the same faded billboard reading exit 191 1 mile ahead. The sign never changed, no matter how far I drove. The engine's hum deepened, a sound stretched too long, like a held breath, refusing to end. Then came a new sound, faint, rhythmic, deliberate from somewhere beneath the road. Not the pattern of knocks I'd come to dread, but something heavier, slower, like a colossal heartbeat echoing through miles of buried concrete. The wheel vibrated under my grip. Cracks opened in the asphalt ahead, spidering outward as if the ground itself were breathing. Through the gaps, I glimpsed movement, darkness coiling, shifting, whispering in shapes that almost looked like faces. I slammed my palm against the horn, and the sound that came out wasn't a horn at all. It was laughter. The mist began to thin, revealing another figure ahead, this one smaller, crouched in the middle of the road. I swerved to avoid it, but as the headlights swept over the shape, I saw what it was. A man slumped against a signpost, his eyes open, glassy, his face identical to mine. My stomach lurched. The truck fishtailed, skidding sideways before catching traction again. In the mirror, the body remained where it was still, almost peaceful, until the fog devoured it whole. The radio flicked back on by itself. Calm, steady, final. "You've reached yourself. Please remain in your vehicle. Not his time." The steering wheel turned slightly left. Ahead, a faint glow appeared, not sunrise, not town light. A loop of road curving back toward where I'd come from, folding neatly into itself like the closing of an eye. And on the shoulder, the newest mile marker waited. 191. Still wet. Still warm. Freshly painted. The painted number glistened under my headlights like fresh blood. 191. It wasn't just a marker anymore, it felt like a signature, as if the road were quietly signing me into something I hadn't agreed to. I stopped the truck, engine idling low, headlights flickering against the fog. The silence outside wasn't empty. It carried a faint tremor, like the low hum of something vast beneath the asphalt. The air smelled faintly of burnt rubber and rain that hadn't fallen. I stepped out, boots sinking slightly into the cracked road. The light from the truck spilled across the mile marker, turning the mist to glass. The warmth I'd felt before was gone. The air here was colder, sharper, like standing beside an open grave. "All right," I whispered, voice trembling. "Who are you?" No tase. The fog shifted. From the white curtain of air, the tall figure emerged again, the man with the burned hand. He looked clearer now, more solid, his eyes reflecting the beam of my headlights like polished stone. "You shouldn't have stopped," he said. "I didn't have a choice. We're one, sir. You always say that. One." His voice didn't echo. It simply existed everywhere at once, in the fog, in the ground, inside my chest. "What is this place?" I demanded. "What do you want from me?" Once, he tilted his head, the motion stiff, almost curious. "This place isn't wanting. It's remembering. You built this road, every turn and crack of it, and it remembers you better than you remember yourself. Every one. I laughed, but the sound came out hollow. "That's insane. I've never been here before. And SoCo." He stepped closer, and the light caught his skin. It wasn't burnt. It was molten, like cooling tar, shifting under translucent flesh. The numbers on his palm glowed brighter. 191. "You drove this road the first time you died," he said. "Now you drive it to remember why. And things they was." My breath faltered. "I'm not dead. As." He smiled, just barely. "Then why doesn't the sun rise for you?" "Well." I turned toward the horizon. He was right. The colorless sky hadn't changed since I'd entered this loop, a fixed, endless twilight that refused to move forward or back. Behind us, the fog stirred. Dozens of faint shapes gathered at the edge of sight travelers, their bodies ghosted, half transparent, each one holding something that glowed softly in their palms. Bottles. Inside every bottle, a faint spark pulsed voices, maybe, or fragments of lives. Their whispers overlapped, creating a quiet, mournful murmur that vibrated in my ribs. "What are they?" I asked. "The echoes," he replied. "Every driver who reached the end but wouldn't let go. As there was." I shook my head, stepping back. "I'm not one of them." "Well." He reached toward me, palm open. "Then prove it. Say your name." "Haspidik." The word stuck. Nothing came out. The air tightened around my throat. My own voice rebelled, trapped somewhere between my chest and the static in the fog. He watched me struggle, and his smile widened. "You can't. Can you? You traded it long ago for the promise of another mile. And through Tation." "I didn't." "Every traveler does." His tone softened, almost pitying. "The road doesn't steal. It offers." "You said yes." The ground trembled. The asphalt behind me rippled like disturbed water, splitting in long black seams. From those cracks, light leaked upward, the same dull glow that burned inside the bottles. The figures in the mist stepped closer, their eyes hollow, their hands outstretched. I recognized one of them, a face like mine, older, weary, resigned. He looked at me as if I were a reflection caught in the wrong direction. "You'll forget soon," the burned man said. "You'll drive again. You'll call it escape. Trakted for Mady." I took a step back toward the truck, pulse hammering. "No, not this time. Way." The man's expression didn't change, then turn around. "Ezer." "What?" "One sound. Look behind you. Tell me what you see." Well, against every instinct, I did. The highway I'd just driven was gone. In its place stretched a line of headlights, one after another, curving perfectly into infinity. Each car was mine, same model, same color, same dent in the fender. And behind every wheel sat me. Hundreds of versions, some awake, some slumped forward, some staring straight ahead with glassy eyes. My body went cold. The burned man stepped closer until the mist swallowed his shape. You asked how it ends. It doesn't. Tell, nurse. The air quivered with something vast, not a sound, not a tremor, but a presence. The fog peeled away ahead of me, revealing a wall of glass cutting across the highway. Behind it shimmered another world. Sunlight, trees, a real sky. Freedom. Drive, the voice said, softer now, if you can. Itself. I ran for the truck. The figures faded as the engine came alive beneath my hands. Headlights on. Gear in drive. Foot on the gas. The world lurched forward straight toward the glass. And for the first time, I prayed the road would finally end. The glass shattered like ice, giving way underfoot. For a breathless second, the world blinked out, no light, no sound, no road, and then there was color. Real color. The sky was blue, impossibly blue, like a memory of summer. The desert was gone, replaced by rolling hills burnt gold in the sun. My truck hummed softly beneath me, the dashboard blinking normally, the air warm and breathable again. The highway stretched straight and true, asphalt dark and dry, the painted lines crisp and unbroken. I laughed an ugly, shaking sound that didn't feel like mine. I made it. Why? The radio was silent, the compass steady, the fuel gauge halfway. The mirror reflected nothing but sunlight and distance. No fog, no ghosts, no mile markers repeating like curses. I rolled down the window. The air smelled of salt and eucalyptus. It was over. It had to be. I drove for hours without seeing another car. The sky faded from blue to amber, the sun lowering gently behind the horizon. When I finally spotted a rest stop sign, the relief hit me so hard my eyes stung. Rest area 1 mile. A parking lot appeared at the next bend. A few picnic tables, a vending machine, an old payphone, all gloriously mundane. I parked, killed the engine, and just sat there, breathing. The silence felt human again. I stepped out, stretching, feeling the stiffness leave my limbs. A soft wind moved through the dry grass, whispering like the world itself had finally forgiven me. I walked to the vending machine, punched in a random number, and listened to the mechanical click of a bottle falling. That sound real, tangible, ordinary made my throat tighten. I leaned against the railing overlooking the valley. For the first time in what felt like years, I let my thoughts slow down. The sun sank lower, painting everything gold. That's when I noticed the sound of an engine behind me. A truck had pulled in, an old model, same color as mine. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. He looked familiar, not in a strange way, but in a quiet, aching way, like remembering your reflection from another life. He wore my jacket, my boots, the same scar over the brow. He caught my stare, smiled faintly, and said, "Been a long road." "Huh." And Contour. The voice was mine. I couldn't speak. My throat locked, my breath shallow. He didn't seem surprised by my silence. "Don't worry," he said, walking closer. "You're not the first to get through." Captain Varian. What is this?" I managed to whisper. He shrugged. Call it the other side. Call it the quiet part of the road. What's soft? He reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A small, clear glass bottle. Inside, a faint red glow pulsed gently. I picked this up, he said. Yours. I think. Rest from now. My chest tightened. No. I broke it. I saw it shatter, and it sound. He smiled. You always think you did. Have. The bottle's light flickered in rhythm with my heartbeat. I stepped back, shaking my head. I don't want it. Will Maine. You have to, he said softly. It's the only way you stay. Well, and say. I don't care. I just want to leave. By Foley and Kundruve. The other me sighed, tilting his head. Leave where? Exactly. There's nowhere left to drive. Look. Ran. I turned. The highway behind my truck was gone. The rest stop sat on the edge of nothing, the railing ending in mist that dropped into an endless white void. No horizon, no world, only the illusion of distance. I turned back to him. He wasn't there anymore. The bottle lay on the ground where he'd stood, glowing faintly in the dimming light. I stared at it, hands trembling, then picked it up. It was warm. Inside, the pulse slowed, steady, calm, almost comforting. And when I lifted it to my ear, I heard a sound I hadn't realized I missed. My own voice, whispering, "You can rest now. Just don't drive at night." My no. I sank to my knees, bottle in hand, the last sunlight spilling across the road. For the first time in years, I believed I might finally sleep. Then the radio inside my truck clicked on by itself. A man's voice, calm, steady, familiar. Attention all drivers on Route 191. Reports confirm the highway has reopened. Please drive carefully. Not. The bottle in my hand glowed brighter. The pulse quickened. And from far below the cliffside, faint and rhythmic, came the deep echo of tires rolling over asphalt that shouldn't exist. The sound of tires echoed from below the cliff deep, steady, endless, as if the highway had built itself again, beneath the mist. Each rotation rose through the air like a call I could feel in my bones. The bottle in my hand warmed against my skin. Inside, the faint red pulse brightened, matching that rhythm. I wanted to throw it, to crush it against the asphalt, but something about the sound it made, that fragile hum, reminded me too much of my own heartbeat. The radio inside the truck crackled again. Route 191 reopened. All lanes clear. Drive safe. If you remember how. Way. The voice wasn't the same calm baritone as before. It was mine, older, slower, layered with static like time itself had worn it thin. I turned toward the truck. Its headlights had turned on without the key, beams cutting into the fog that had begun to seep up from the valley. The mist crawled over the railing, spilling like water, curling around my boots. I took one step back. The fog followed. Another step. The hum in the bottle grew louder. Then the passenger door of the truck opened just a few inches, enough to invite. A familiar shape sat inside. The girl in white. She looked straight ahead, hands folded neatly in her lap, face calm, expressionless. Her dress moved slightly, as though stirred by a breeze that didn't touch me. "You shouldn't be here," I said, voice trembling. She tilted her head, a faint smile ghosting her lips. "Neither should you." "For mile." I froze. "You're not real. Ever dies health." Her gaze flicked toward the bottle in my hand. "You said that before. Every time. Where we're manned." The radio buzzed again. My voice, another me, spoke through the static. Don't look at her. Just drive. When? The girl leaned forward, whispering. He says that every time, too. We have trained to do. The air thickened, pressing against my chest. The fog around us twisted upward, forming faint outlines, a road curving back on itself, a loop made of memory. The other me's voice bled through the static again. It ends when you drive into it. It ends when you stop running. To mine. The girl smiled wider, her eyes reflecting red light from the bottle. He doesn't tell you what happens after. Relation. The fog was up to my waist now, cold and heavy. The truck engine growled softly, idling though no key turned it. The passenger seat door opened wider. Get in, she said, or the road will choose for you. Way. I backed away until I hit the railing. Below, the mist pulsed in waves, glowing faintly with the color of taillights. Shapes moved inside it, countless cars drifting through the fog. Their drivers slumped behind the wheel. I recognized every one of them. Every face was mine. The hum grew louder, unbearable. I fell to my knees, clutching the bottle. It vibrated violently in my hand, the red light flickering faster, brighter, alive. You can't leave it behind, the girl whispered. It's the only part that still remembers you. Way. I looked at the bottle, my voice, my soul, whatever piece of me the road had taken, pulsing like a warning. Then I did the only thing I could. I smashed it against the railing. Glass and light burst outward, a spray of red scattering into the fog. The hum cut off mid-beat. For an instant, the world was still. Then everything came alive at once. The truck's headlights flared white. The radio screamed. The ground cracked beneath my feet, asphalt splitting like dried skin. The air filled with wind, with whispers, with the sound of every word I'd ever lost. The girl in white stood, her face unreadable. You broke it, she said quietly. I staggered toward her. You said it would remember me. Protection. It did. She turned her head slightly, eyes empty and kind at the same time. Now it doesn't have to. Why? She stepped out of the truck, barefoot, walking into the thickest part of the fog. The moment she disappeared, the light began to dim. The truck door slammed shut. The engine roared, louder than it ever had before. I climbed in, grabbing the wheel. The road ahead shimmered, folding in on itself like paper burning from both ends. I pressed the accelerator. The tires screamed. The fog peeled away. The highway rose ahead bright, endless, open, leading straight into a sky that looked almost real. I could feel it fighting back, the wheel twisting, the radio hissing, the voices screaming for me to stop. But I didn't. I drove harder. The light swallowed everything. The road disappeared. The hum faded. When I opened my eyes, I was standing by the ocean. Real ocean. The sun burned gold on the horizon, and the air smelled of salt, not fuel. Waves rolled quietly against a black shore. Behind me, no road, no fog, no truck. Just a single weathered sign sticking from the sand. Route 191 ends here. For the first time, I felt something that wasn't fear quiet. Then the surf bubbled, receding with a hiss. A shape rolled in with the next wave, a glass bottle, clear and smooth. Inside, faintly glowing, was a single number scratched into the glass. 192. And from the horizon, a voice I knew whispered gently, carried by the wind. Keep driving, that is re. The tide touched my boots, cold and deliberate. I stared at the bottle half buried in black sand. The glow inside it pulsed weakly, one beat, then two, as if testing whether I was still listening. The ocean in front of me looked endless, but the horizon wasn't straight. It curved upward, bending gently like the start of a road. A pale line shimmered across the surface of the water, stretching out toward the setting sun. I bent down, picked up the bottle. The glass was warm, almost alive, humming faintly under my fingers. The number inside, 192, throbbed like a living vein. When I pulled the cork free, the sound that escaped wasn't air. It was a sigh. My sigh. "You made it to the end," a voice whispered my own, but distant, as if spoken from another life. But the road never ends. It only changes direction. One. The sky darkened, the sea flattening into a perfect mirror. My reflection on the surface looked back at me older, worn, its mouth moving slightly out of sync. "You wanted freedom," it said. "The next highway gives you that." Well, the reflection reached upward, fingertips pressing against the thin layer of water that separated us. The touch rippled outward, forming a ring of light. Behind me, the wind rose, carrying a low rumble, not thunder, not waves, something turning over, deep beneath the surface. A faint beam appeared ahead, cutting through the dusk like twin headlights. The reflection smiled. "It's waiting for you, too." The bottle in my hand vibrated once, twice, then cracked, spilling its red light into the sand. The glow snaked toward the water, merging with the reflection until the surface shimmered like glass, ready to break. I stepped back. The ocean exhaled. And through the foam, the faint outline of asphalt began to emerge, a wet, gleaming road rising from the sea, stretching into the mist. The wind carried one final sound, soft, familiar, inevitable. Knock. Knock. The reflection's smile widened. "Welcome to Route 192. Well, to Posity." The headlights brightened. The world folded in light. And the road began again. The sea was silent now. The road that had risen from its surface dissolved back into the water, leaving nothing but the steady roll of the tide and the faint scent of iron and rain. The bottle I'd held was gone, shattered, or maybe reclaimed by the ocean itself. For a long time, I stood there, barefoot in the sand, staring at the line where the world ended and began again. Every sound that had haunted me, the humming, the static, the quiet rhythm of knock, knock, had faded into memory. The air was still. No engines, no whispers, just wind and salt. I thought that was peace, until I realized peace was just another word for forgetting. Behind me, the cliffs shimmered, not rock, not shadow glass, smooth and translucent, stretching far into the distance like the edge of a mirror. And within it, faintly, I could see movement. Cars tracing infinite loops, headlights weaving through mist, faces at the wheel, faces I knew. Some were mine, some were not. All of them driving. They never stopped. They never aged. They never escaped. The world doesn't end with death, I thought. It ends when the road remembers your name. I turned back to the water. The waves rolled in one last time, brushing my feet before retreating, pulling the sand with them. Something small glimmered at the shoreline. I bent to pick it up. A key. Simple. Old. Old. Etched into the metal was a single word. Room 1. And beneath it, a number. 1. The sea went quiet. The air tightened that impossible. Listening, silence returning for the first time in what felt like lifetimes. Far out on the horizon, 2 lights blinked once in the dark. Headlights. Moving toward me. I smiled, tired, hollow, free in the way only ghosts can be. Because I finally understood. No one leaves the highway. They just change lanes. Before we begin, listener, remember to gently tap like and subscribe so you won't miss the next story. Quayton Selfant. End of anthology. Whispers of the Highway. The road never ends. It only waits for another driver.